So the Zin.
Liar's Dice.
Liar's Dice.
This is one of my favorites.
It's kind of a theme going here, but we won't get into it.
Well, and this is
We
where
actually put this on the back of the label here, the whole Holden thing. I just saw that.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, the Liar's Dice was the first wine that we actually came up with a name for it, and it happened very organically. Tim Murphy, one of the founders, Creature of Habit, he every morning for 10, 15, 20 years would go to this little place called Mickey's Grill. And Tim literally had a key to Mickey's, and it was a dive. It was awful. He'd go up and start the coffee. His buddy Walt and John, who he went to high school with in Berkeley, almost 60 years ago. Walt and John had also eventually moved to Sonoma County when they retired from their jobs and grew Zinfandel. And then there's a couple of other guys, Mike and Tom, and they would have their coffee, they'd have breakfast, and then they'd start playing Liar's Dice. And that game eventually would roll into a lunchtime, and they'd go next door, a couple doors down to Catelli's, so they'd get a bottle of wine. So they'd play a game, whoever lost had to buy the bottle of wine. Right. And then they'd do lunch. And this game, Tim may have left at, say, 9, go check on the vineyards, he'd be back at 11.
Right.
But the game would go every day, all day into the night. And they were the Liar's Dice Club. Well, when we started talking about making Zin, Tim said, well, if you guys want to make Zin, all my Liar's Dice buddies, they're all Zin growers. I get you fruit. Great, so we started getting into the Zin, and our first vintage was like 93.
Okay.
Well, all of a sudden, we were doing a grower appreciation party, and we thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of fun? We'll hand make some labels for all these guys, and we'll call it Liar's Dice Zinfandel. And so everybody got their bottles of Liar's Dice Zinfandel, and they loved it. And somebody goes, well, why isn't just the whole thing called Liar's Dice Zinfandel?
Okay.
It should be Liar's Dice Zinfandel. And so we changed the name, and it was pretty amazing that the impact of a name. It's 97 was the first vintage of Liar's Dice Zinfandel. So previous to that, we were selling 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 cases in a year. It was perfect, great. And they had more grapes that we could use, but this is what we were selling, and it was nice continuing.
Met the demand.
Well, 97, the trend starts, for about 3 months, and then all of a sudden, sorry about that.
It's better you than me.
Yeah, I was going to start singing some blues songs here. All of a sudden, I was in Austin, Texas, and all anyone would talk about was Austin, Texas, or was Liar's Dice. I love to talk about Austin, Texas. All they would talk about was Liar's Dice, and everybody had it. Went to Houston, and it was the same thing. I remember calling my dad. It's like, God, here in Texas, all they talk about is Liar's Dice, and it's everywhere. And in about 7 weeks after that, our stock was sold out, because then it started happening everywhere else. So 98 came out, sold the entire vintage in, it was 10 weeks.
Right.
And it's like, okay, what's going on here? And I think it's because people would write about it. It was going to food magazines because it was a name, people could remember it, and it just really took off. And so now we've been pretty mature at our level now, and we do about 18,000 cases. All it's a lot of the same growers from the original, and it's been that level for about 6, 7, 8 years. So
it may be the allure of it. Liar's Dice, cool name. All in Claret, cool name. But it's decent.
Yeah, well,
and it's going to keep it going, and I think that's why you're client.
You're right. It's Alexander Valley and Dry Creek Zin, and I try to make it in a juicier style. I don't want that that ripe portiness, which some people like.
Right.
And I have some wines that are on that little bit of riper, but this wine, I want that fresh, spicy fruit. And black raspberry and black cherry and a little bit of jamminess, just so that as the sun's going down. This is just the perfect wine to be sitting out, dock, the patio, and such a great food wine. And I don't typically make my wines to go necessarily with food.
Good for you.
I want the wines to taste good.
You like it with food, but I'll be honest, I rarely drink wine with my food.
Right.
I do it if I need to, like a lot of the Italian wines, you need to.
Right.
And you blend it and you kind of match it and bring it together. 80% of the time, I drink my wine by itself.
Just right, because it is a food, and it's enjoyable, and you know, and I love, you know, I do a lot of winemaker dinners around the country, and you know, where the chef is tasting through all the wines, and then he's starting to think, okay, I'm going to make food to go with this,
Right.
and I love it, and there's, you know, often magical pairings where it's just like, you made my wine 5 times better. No, well, you made my food better, and it's just awesome. But in my head, I couldn't wrap around. Well, if I make this to be a food wine, well, what if they don't have food? And you know,
That's exactly it.
yeah,
Because when you go into a place, and I mean, I think when you can pair it right, look out. It really accents both of them and brings out the best flavors in each one, the food and the wine. So when you go to a restaurant, you pair it well, phenomenal food, phenomenal wine, magical night. Go home because you love that. You think it's the wine because the wine tastes so great. Go home, have it. It's okay.
yeah.
You know, because you're missing that food component. And then you got to match it up, and a lot of times you're not going to be able to do it. Can you make this better with certain foods? I'm sure.
You know, I mean, that's such a barbecue food. I mean, whether it's
Right.
a burger, but really, you know, like, you know,
Ribs
with
with
barbecue
really
sauce,
good.
baby back ribs is my thing, or pulled pork sandwiches are killer. I really like the pulled pork sandwich, you know, drenched in some sauce, because it can stand up kind of that spicier component. But, you know, it's good with pizza. It's just,
Right.
it's a fun wine. You know, it helps soften it out a little bit. But great flavors, and this is one of my favorite wines to share with friends.
The Zen?
Sit around and laugh. And it's a wine all about camaraderie.
You know what? I'm partial. I can't decide which one of these I like. I'll be honest, because the spices are in both of them.
Right.
This one has a lingering finish to it.
Absolutely.
Unless you kind of think about
You know, for me, I guess the Liar's Dice is one where I can just sit around and enjoy with some people and have a good time. The All In, same, but I really like that New York strip or filet mignon. You know, at this stage now, as that ages a couple more years, it'd be less important probably to me. But I just think that wine would really like a nice piece of beef.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But,
Across the board, great job.
thank you.
Great.
Appreciate that.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
pleasure. Now we can just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.